like Vanguard would be the most obvious. Passive management is also growing in other asset classes other than equities. Fixed income, for example. And so I only want to talk for 2 minutes about this, and then if I have time at the end of Thursday or next Tuesday's class, I'll try to talk a little bit about this. I just got a paper, I have a new paper where I apply active share to fixed income or commercial real estate portfolios. That actually pertains to this class, so I'll want to take a couple of minutes to talk about that later. But roughly, active share is a new measure to measure how different the holdings of the portfolio are to the holdings of the market, of the benchmark. Okay? So if you're not a passive fund, right? Passive funds just buy the market, you buy a marketplace. If you're not a passive fund, but you're active, then how do you measure how active the fund is? The traditional way of measuring this is tracking error volatility or tracking error. Tracking error takes the returns of the fund, subtracts the returns of the fund's benchmark, you get the difference in returns, and calculates the standard deviation or the volatility, same thing, of that difference in returns. Okay? That's called the tracking error volatility or just tracking error. You may have seen that in investments. That's been the traditional measure of active management. And so what we did is we come up with our new measure, which is arguably complementary to tracking error volatility. It doesn't look at returns at all. It completely ignores returns. It actually looks under the hood of the portfolio, look at the portfolio weights, so it looks at the security level portfolio weights of holdings in the fund and compares how different the portfolio weights of the fund are to the portfolio weights of the fund's benchmark. And we call it active share. So active is different. So in our definition, any portfolio weight that is different is active. What is active? Active just means different from the market, different from the passive benchmark. So active can mean an overweight or an underweight, it doesn't matter. So in active share, you treat over and underweights identically. Okay. So if you have a portfolio that has a benchmark, and let's say in the benchmark a particular security is 2% of the benchmark. If the portfolio also has 2% in that particular security, so the portfolio weight is the same, then even though the security is 2% of the actively managed fund, in our definition, the fund does not have an active position in that particular security. Because the weight in the fund is identical to the weight in the fund's benchmark. Does that make sense? If the fund has a 4% weight in that security, we say there's a 2% active overweight and a 2% overlap. If the fund doesn't own that security at all, again, that security is 2% of the benchmark, then even though the fund doesn't own the security, because the security is in the fund's benchmark, we're saying that the fund has a 2% underweight in that security. So active is completely relative here. It's relative to the benchmark, relative to the weights in the markets that the actively managed funds benchmark to. Okay. And so active means different in terms of holdings, and share is just proportion. And so it's active share. You can think of it as 1 minus portfolio overlap. So you can take 100% and subtract the sum of all the overlapping weights. So again, if the fund has 4% in this security, the benchmark has 2%, the overlap will be 2%. Okay? So you can look at all the stocks or securities that are in both the fund and the benchmark. For that group of securities, calculate the overlapping weight, which is the minimum weight across both. Sum up those overlapping weights and subtract that number from 100%. And you get active share. And as I would argue, this is kind of the simplest measure we could think of comparing holdings, comparing portfolios. And I guess we got lucky because no one had done it before. And then we applied this to a very large sample, fairly long sample too, of actively managed equity funds. And we found kind of two big results. The first is that a lot of funds that claim to be actively managed are not. So in our estimations, about 30% of actively managed funds, mostly large cap funds, that at some point had over half the market in, not anymore, but 10 years ago or so. They have weights that are substantially overlapping with the benchmark weights. And as you may expect, if a fund charges 150 basis points a year, more than the past benchmark on average, but its holdings are substantially overlapping, those funds are likely to underperform substantially. Because you can only outperform from the percentage of the fund that is different, right? By construction, right? Just any outperformance has to come from the active share, right? From the percentage of the holdings that are different. Tracking error has the wrong sign of performance. So higher tracking error funds generally underperform. And then we also had good news, and that the funds, and there's only 2%, 5%, 10% of funds, depending how generous you want to be, that have truly different holdings, that have almost no overlap with their benchmarks, they actually outperformed in the future. Okay? So that part of the research became then, I guess, part of the propaganda tool set of active managers.
So when you're subtracting that number from 100 for the active share amount,
yes.
The higher the better, because that would be
the higher the active share, not necessarily the better, but the higher the active share, the less the overlap, and the more different the holdings are from the fund.
Okay.
Could you benchmark it to like two indexes? So if one
Sure.
is like 65%.
You can. That's unusual, but we looked at that as well. So you can take a fund's calculated active share, and look at all the active holdings and calculate the active share of that with respect to any benchmark you can find. Yeah, but very few funds do that. That's more typical for asset allocation funds. For example, funds that combine equities plus bonds, like they would generally have two different benchmarks. So active share is a measure of active management. It's not a measure of skill. Even though high active share funds have generally tended to outperform, it's not a measure of skill. Why not? Why is active share not a measure of skill? You don't know what the market's going to do? Fair enough. That's the same if you buy a passive fund, though. Well, tracking error is not a measure of skill either, I would say. It's a measure of, in the past 1 or 2 years, over which you calculate tracking error, how different the returns have been. Arguably, tracking error is largely picking out how well a portfolio has been diversified in the past. It says nothing about how the portfolio is diversified in the present. Tracking error has very little predictive power, even to predict future tracking error. Active share has very high predictive power to predict future active share. Active share is very stable over time. Tracking error isn't. For some funds, tracking error is very stable, but for most funds. So why is active share not a measure of skill? Even though low active share is related to, well, cross-indexing, right, that's what we call it, is related to underperformance, and high active share is related to outperformance.
It just tells you you're different, doesn't mean you're better.
That's right. Why not? What's the difference? Do you need, let me rephrase it, do you need skill to have an high active share?
No.
No, right? I mean, that's the key. You don't need to have any skill to get a portfolio with a very high active share. All you need is just buy a bunch of different securities. That's all you need to do. So what do you need for high active share? You need two things for high active share. And it's the same no matter where you work. So in my mind, you need three things to be successful in active management. The first one, naturally, is skill. But you don't need skill to have an active share. What are the other two things you need?
Really smart analyst.
I can say skill. Skill also means identifying other people to rely upon to help you.
You need a benchmark.
Yeah, you need to know. Again, I think that's also skill. You need to understand what part of the market you're going to focus on. What your mandate is, what your investment universe is. Right? Skill. Yeah, so active funds generally have 100 to 200 basis points extra fees relative to passive funds. So take a fund that has an active share of 50%. If the fund charges 200 basis points fees above a passive fund, when will outperform a passive fund? Well, that's the makeup of 200 basis points, right? Before it starts making any money for investors relative to the passive fund, right? The fund is playing with only half its portfolio. Active share 50%. That's not uncommon because the largest equity fund in the world today. Anyone know what that is? Sorry?
Wait, just repeat that one.
Actively managed fund. What's the largest actively managed fund in the world? No one's interested in going to investment management? Right, you gotta know the market. I'm serious. Growth Fund of America. Okay. They have hundreds of billions of dollars. It's amazing how big they are. Just think about the fees. Okay. They only charge about 80 basis points. Yeah, different asset classes. They charge less than 80 basis points a year. But if you multiply 80 basis points by a couple of $100 billion, they're doing really well. Nonetheless, they are a closed index fund. Their active share is about, last time I looked, between 50 and 60%. So the example I'm giving is the realistic. And we've gone in the press, we've gone back and forth a bit. They say, hey, we're still providing value. I say, if you provide value, why don't you apply your skill to your whole portfolio? So let's say you have 200 basis points extra fees. You have an active share of 50%. That means that half of your portfolio is strictly the S&P 500, say, or whatever benchmark you have. The other half of your portfolio is different. How much do you have to outperform in the percentage of the portfolio that's different with an active share of 50% before you start making any money for your investors? If you're having 200 basis points higher fees than your passive benchmark. Remember, passive benchmark can just be a couple of basis points, right? How much do you have to outperform? 4%. Exactly, 4%. Your fees divided by your active share. How many managers can outperform with 4% in any 1 year and any 10-year period? Almost none. A handful can do that. Peter Lynch, who was one of the most successful asset managers ever, his lifetime 10-year alpha was about 4% a year. Warren Buffett has about 4% a year over his tenure. And he's one of the most successful investors ever. So if you have 50% active share, you can basically forget about ever outperform, right? It's just the markets are too competitive for anyone really to be able to outperform by 4% a year in the long run. All right, so scale is necessary but not sufficient. What else do you need? Or I can flip the question around. If you look at a manager, for the sake of the argument, okay, let's say I'm running a fund and I have no skill whatsoever. Arguably, that's why I teach. Okay? That's a joke. I have no skill whatsoever. I'm running an active fund. I still show up, and I have no skill, right? And I still show up with an active share of 100%. What do you know about it? No skill. What do you know about it? You know two things about it. You have two other things you need. Maybe we don't teach those things in business school. It may be hard to teach.
You're choosing stocks outside the benchmark, like small cap.
Yes, that's right, I do. But you don't need skill for that, right? I just need to buy stocks that are not in the benchmark, right? You don't need skill for that. All I need is look at what are securities in the benchmark. Okay, now don't buy those, buy other stocks, right? What do you know about me? Two things. Is anyone participating in bank bouts? You are? Good for you. Let me know when you're fighting. Sorry? Tomorrow. What time? 7:15. I can't. My evening agenda is not just my own, but I will try. What does Chris have by fighting in the bank bout? Exactly. Okay? He has guts. You don't know if he has any skills, but he has guts. Okay? All right. So we got the second ingredient. No guts, no glory. Right? If you want to do anything in financial markets, you need guts. Otherwise, financial markets are very, very risky. If you're too worried, my brother's running a hedge fund. We did a bunch of these things together. But he focused only on commodities and currencies. That's not really mine. The problem of currencies and commodities, he runs a multi-strategy currency commodities hedge fund. The problem if you run in currency and commodities, you're always infinitely levered. Right? You can lever up as much as you want. The market is very quiet until it hits this, couple of completely crazy days. Can you stomach that? Right? Can you still sleep? You need guts, otherwise you simply won't survive. So one of the reasons that you have active managers who are basically running passive funds is guts. It takes real guts to be different. Because on average, right, the market's going to be right, more or less. Right? So if you're different, right, you need guts. What is the other thing you need?
You need to be lucky.
Yes, but I don't need lucky. So remember me, right? I'm this guy with no skill who has a 100% accuracy of portfolio. The first thing is I need guts. I don't need to be lucky to get 100% accuracy of portfolio. Right? I need something very closely related to luck. So I need
Basically,
yes, I need discipline. Kind of like this too. Yes. But remember, I have no skill whatsoever, right? I really have no idea what I'm doing. Okay? I have guts. Okay? So I may answer the bank bouts, right? I've never wore a boxing class. Right? I just have guts and I think, I can do it. Yes, the guts can be because you're well prepared, or you can have guts because you're just overconfident. You may be thinking too deeply about this.
Money.
Sorry? Very good. Yes. That's key in financial markets. You need skill. If you skill and no one will listen to you, forget about it. You need guts. Right? If you don't have guts, you simply won't be in the market. And you need opportunity. You need to actually be willing. You need to be able to actually have the opportunity, right? To be different. And that means someone has to give you responsibility to manage a bunch of money. Or someone has to give you a particular role to do that. Okay? So now let's go back to me. I have no skill whatsoever. And maybe because I'm a smooth salesman, I got some opportunity, and I have this guts. Okay? How long would I survive in financial markets? No skill whatsoever. I convinced some people, right, to give me an opportunity, and I have a lot of guts. How long would I survive?
as long as they trust you.
But how long do you think they will keep trusting me? Remember, I have no skill whatsoever, just a big mouth and opportunity.
In all honesty, I mean, you can still keep a client during a down market. It's where I interned this summer, but I mean, half of it was, it's all about the relationship you have with the client. If you can sit there and talk them through a rough patch like the crisis in 2008, they were still able to hold on to a lot of clients and actually bring them
Fair
back
enough.
from other.
But what you say has to kind of make sense, right?
Trust.
No, of course. No, it makes a lot of sense. What I'm saying is, let's say you vastly underperform, right? Because I have no skill. And I'm going to try to explain myself to my clients, and what I have to say still has to make some sense, right? But you're right, you need trust. But so how long will I survive, you think, in markets? No. Not long, right? That was my input. It depends on who your clients are. Right? If your clients are very trusting, even though I'm not trustworthy, or they're very patient, or they may not be very well informed. But in general, in today's very competitive markets, you simply won't survive for very long. So how do you survive for a long time? Well, the easiest way to survive for a long time is to run a closet index fund. Your holdings are very similar to the market. You're raking in fees. You will never underperform by much. On average, you're going to be exactly the market minus your fees. Okay? Markets are very volatile. The fees are 100 basis points. Volatility in markets, 10, 20, 30% a year. It's going to take a long time for people to figure out that on average you're losing 1%. And particularly if you're managing 5 funds. Fidelity Magellan is another class index fund. The guy is running Fidelity Magellan. He runs a couple of different funds. Great business. And so you don't need skill to run an active fund. At the same time, you can show me a manager that has a very high active share for a while, let's say 5 years or longer, has a decent track record. That manager, I would say, is very unlikely to have no skill. Just very difficult, right, to run a very high active share portfolio with a decent track record over some period of time. Particularly if you have some assets. If you maybe only have 10, 50, 100 $1 million, it's potentially easier. But if you run a substantial portfolio, then you really need skill to do that, I would say. So that can explain, arguably, our main result, okay, that high active share managers have outperformed. But it doesn't mean that all active share managers can outperform. Right? Again, you don't need skill to have high active share. And so, the fun thing about active share has been, for me, that it has given me a lot of opportunities to talk to people in the real world. Yes.
Close index fund surviving if they are simply tracking the benchmark, then charging a fee.
So the growth of America is doing very well, thank you very much. Right? They have, I don't know, last time I looked, over $400 billion. The very smart people running that fund. And so, why don't they buy more different stocks? Because they don't want the downside. If you have an high active share, generally you also have more downside. Right? So having a low active share is no problem if your fees are really low. If your fees are kind of proportionally low. The real problem is low active share funds that charge high fees. Right? That's the worst combination. In many countries outside the United States, that's how I would describe most funds. In many countries around the world, almost every country level fund out there is a closet index fund. Spain, Italy, Poland, Switzerland is pretty bad, France is pretty bad. In Asia, we have no idea. Okay? Most Asian funds simply don't disclose the holdings. Okay? But in an environment with no transparency, I think closet indexing is probably much more prevalent than an environment with transparency. The United States is the only country, the only major country that has full transparency. You can just go to the SEC website and see what's in any fund portfolio, if it's available for retail investors.
I think I've seen funds in India, they have the fund prospectus is there on the website and they disclose all their holdings.
Yes. Well, then you can calculate yourself. Yeah. So funds more and more start disclosing more. The market demands that. Also because more and more people become aware of active share that it matters, so they start disclosing more. For us, for active share, what was really cool is that several investment houses started to routinely add active shares to their prospectus. Goldman was one of the first to do that. Morgan Stanley as well. So Goldman and Morgan, they generally tell investors the active shares that we're going to. They've been market leaders of that. And it's been great fun for me. It's given me a lot of opportunities.